Latest news roundup in London tonight.
Good evening, I'm Alastair Stewart.
And I'm Graham Miller. This is London Tonight.
The police had feared a spectacular terrorist outrage. This afternoon, the IRA confirmed what we already knew. They planted the massive bomb which devastated the heart of the City of London and took the life of a News of the World photographer. The IRA compounded their outrage with 2 car bomb attempts late last night on Downing Street and Scotland Yard. It was only the bravery of 2 hijacked minicab drivers who averted what could have been a deeper tragedy. And today, as police and insurance assessors explored deeper into the wreckage of the city, the full extent of the damage caused by the fertiliser bomb became clear. Our reporter Simon Harris has been following their work all day. Simon.
Alastair, much of the City of London has remained sealed off today, the police maintaining a tight cordon. The only people allowed inside, the forensic experts examining the remains of the lorry bomb, key holders of businesses which were damaged, and teams of insurance assessors and building workers. For this morning, less than 24 hours after the bomb, the task of repairing the damage was underway.
I said when I saw the damage at the Baltic Exchange that was the worst I'd seen anywhere in the world, apart from the early days in Northern Ireland. This is worse than the Baltic Exchange.
The aftermath of an IRA bomb. Buildings looking like battleships after the enemy onslaught. A sea of rubble and documents littering the streets. The remains of the tipper truck, giant pieces of razor-sharp shrapnel. This was the Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank. Every window blown out. But yesterday's bomb was only the start of a day of IRA terrorism in London. Late last night at a North London minicab office, 2 drivers were to be the victims of another IRA tactic, the proxy bomb. One was ordered at gunpoint to Downing Street, but the bomb exploded near St Pancras after the terrorists had got out and after the driver had alerted the police. No one was injured. His colleague's hijacked minicab exploded in Finsbury Park. The target this time, Scotland Yard. Again, no one was hurt.
The cars were ordered from the office and then given some instructions to drive to Downing Street or wherever the other destination was, and that they would be followed. If they got out of the car, the bomb would be detonated.
In the city, the IRA bomb has provided months of work for glaziers. Among them, a team who've just completed repairs after last April's Baltic Exchange blast. Now they've to start all over again.
Well, really disheartening, isn't it, you know? This time it's 2 different opposite faces. Like last time was on the other side. Well, we haven't been able to see what it's like on the other side. All we can see is this corner here. A lot of hard work.
At St Paul's Cathedral there were prayers for the victims today, and for the terrorists a message of defiance.
It does absolutely no good whatsoever for the IRA to plant bombs in the city or anywhere else. It helps nobody, it damages others. It's absolutely useless activity.
Simon, what's the mood of the police? What are they anticipating next?
Well, the police are anticipating what they've always anticipated. I'm afraid that's more of the same. With the absence of any political solution obvious, they can only take the IRA's history, and Warrington has appeared to act as no deterrent, nor indeed has any of the arms caches and arrests recently. I'm afraid it's a case of they've done it before, they'll probably do it again. Alastair.
Simon, thanks very much indeed. And as Simon said during his report, a News of the World photographer did die at the hands of the IRA. He was 34. Today would have been his wedding anniversary. The Queen has sent a message of sympathy to his family. His death underlines the risk that journalists take in trying to get their story. Christopher Peacock reports.
When the Bishopsgate bomb went off, most people ran for cover. But inevitably, it's the emergency services and journalists who run towards the danger. These pictures were taken by ITN's Jim Dutton, who was hit by flying glass. And that's how the news photographer Ed Henty died, caught in the blast trying to get his pictures.
The atmosphere in this now empty room yesterday as the day wore on, and particularly by 9 and 10 o'clock last night when there was frankly little doubt that he was the victim, was awful.
Today, the newsroom at the News of the World, where Ed worked, was silent. The paper layout for his obituary already being read by a shocked nation. A black flagstaff appearing at the top of the page.
If you like, a foot soldier in Fleet Street who becomes a story himself. It's awful.
One story dominates the Sunday newsstands, and it is, of course, the City of London bombing. Ed and his family have to live with the fact that it's his picture that appears on the front page. But nevertheless, his death has brought home the risks that journalists run in doing their work. This afternoon, photo and news journalists waited for the next press call near the scene of the bombing, aware that one of their number was missing. But they still had a job to do.
If every time there was a bomb you thought you had a serious risk of dying, you probably wouldn't go anywhere near the ribbon.
You push yourself to a certain stage and then you might say, no, that's not for me, but someone else might go that extra distance.
Scary at times, but obviously news is news and it has to be done.
At the family home, flowers of condolence were arriving. This would have been Ed Henty's 12th wedding anniversary. Ed was an investigative photo news journalist. He might have been in Bosnia, where his family would have worried. Instead, he died where they thought he was safe, in the heart of London. At Wapping, this is Christopher Peacock for London Tonight.
The killers aren't being caught because of muddle, possible underfunding of the intelligence effort and a lack of real commitment from the Irish government. Those were the views of former Home Office Minister David Mellor, who also remains close to the Prime Minister.
So we now have to raise our game. And I've called this morning for a total review of our policy against terrorism, designed to upgrade our efforts and to ensure, first of all, the intelligence is better. MI5 took it over. Is enough being done? Secondly, to improve policing. We will almost certainly need more policemen in the anti-terrorist squad.
Well, a little earlier, I put some of those points to Northern Ireland journalist Eamon Malley, who writes and reports extensively on terrorism.
I suspect that Sir Patrick Mayhew and senior RUC officers will be rapping Mr. Mellor over the knuckles for such a remark, because nothing that we hear locally here would substantiate that allegation. In fact, we had a meeting with senior police officers just last week, and they assured us that cooperation never was better. And Sir Patrick Mayhew says there's absolutely no will in the Irish Republic to deal with these people and to cooperate with the forces of law and order on this side of the border or in Britain.
Let's take David Miller's second point then, which suggests that there might be something of a muddle between the security forces. If not between governments, as you've just said, is there a muddle between security forces?
When the IRA and their parlance get a bomb home, we always hear talk of muddles at some level between MI5 and the security forces, Scotland Yard or whatever. When they make arrests in Britain, we don't hear any talk of this muddle. The fact of the matter is, we live in Northern Ireland here with bombs every week, every day sometimes. With the best will in the world, it's impossible to stop every bomb getting home, as the IRA say. And I think that we've learned to live with that here, and there's more of an air of reality here and an acceptance that that's life as we know it in Northern Ireland.
Eamon, what more do you think we can expect on this side of the water? Because there is some sense that there's been success in finding arms caches and so on and so forth, and yet bomb after bomb comes. What more can we expect?
More of the same, I suspect. The reality is that last August the IRA had tried to deliver 5 bombs of this dimension in London, and that didn't come off. The materials were seized, and they've had some arrests in the interim, but as I've argued for some time as an observer of this situation, all of what we have seen here has been transported, transferred in one shape, form or the other to Britain, and I would fear that we'll have a lot more of this, because these bombs, particularly aimed at economic targets, will continue, I suspect, for a long time to come.
Eamon Malley from our Northern Ireland studio. Open for business, that's the defiant message from the city to its attackers. Thousands of millions of pounds change hands across the dealing screens of banks, insurance houses and pension funds every working day. Tomorrow, say the traders, may not be a normal Monday, but it will be a normal dealing day. Our business correspondent Paul Larsman begins his report with the lesson learnt from the last terrorist attack on the world's financial capital.
That time I had no idea, of course, of the magnitude or the destruction or the deaths involved. And it was only over the next 24 hours that that awful realisation came through, that we had a massive problem on our hands.
Baltic Exchange boss Jim Buckley remembers the bomb which destroyed 3 lives and his workplace last year. His advice to the latest victims: prioritise.
First priority is people, dealing with shock, trauma, bereavement. Second is the building, making sure it's secure, there are no fire risks, guarding it so that you can't suffer theft and further vandalism. Third would be getting out computer records and the files that you need for immediate operational purposes. And fourth is moving into alternative accommodation to keep the show on the road.
This time round, many companies do have contingency plans, and all sorts of practical help is at hand. Stockbroker Terry Galgi is providing up to 80 desks for displaced dealers. He says the show must go on.
We have to show that we don't sort of submit to this type of activity. And, you know, the city is the financial centre of the world, and we want to keep it that way. And we have to work to those ends, and we have to pull together.
In fact, everyone from the Lord Mayor downwards is anxious to put out the message that as far as possible it will be business as usual tomorrow. That may not be possible, but the city earned Britain £17 billion last year and no one wants to see that shrink. Well, from a financial and geographic point of view, the City of London remains the ideal home for an international institution like a bank. From the point of view of security, though, after 2 devastating bombs in just over a year, you could forgive people for thinking twice about basing themselves here. In the City of London, this is Paul Larsman for London Tonight.
So just what will be open and how will people get into work in the city tomorrow? Back now to the site of the bomb and our reporter Simon Harris. Simon, many if not all of the city workers will be determined to get to work tomorrow, but just how easy is it going to be?
Alastair, it's changing hour by hour, but this is the situation so far. People should first phone their own companies. If they can't get through, then they should phone the Guildhall on 071 606 3030. That's 071 606 3030, and that line will stay open all night. There's a bus strike tomorrow as well. All red buses will be off the road, but buses from Centre West, East London and West Links will run, but obviously not through bombed out areas. On the roads, the following are closed: Princes Road, King William Street, Gracechurch Street, Fenchurch Street, Aldgate, Bishopgate of course, Pindar Street, Appold Street, Finsbury Avenue, Eldon Street and South Place. Tubes and trains will run as normal. Alastair.
Thanks very much indeed, Simon. Meanwhile, another bomb scare disrupted the start of a march by the far-right British National Party. Hundreds of police were drafted in to keep apart the marchers and a counter-demonstration by the Anti-Nazi League. It was only the large police presence which prevented violence breaking out. The BNP claimed the march was in protest at recent IRA attacks. Anti-Nazi League organisers claimed the event was designed to further provoke racial tension following the murder of a black teenager in Eltham on Thursday. Now, with a look at the day's sporting news, here's Graham Miller.
Newcastle United reclaimed their place as the First Division leaders this afternoon with victory over their fierce North East rival Sunderland. A pre-match downpour turned the game at St James's Park into a potential farce and a nightmare for both sides. Surprisingly, though, there was only one goal in an excellent contest. It came from this perfectly judged Scott Siller's free kick for the Magpies after 10 minutes. So final score, Newcastle United 1, Sunderland 0. So Newcastle back on top with the overnight leaders Portsmouth now in second place. West Ham looks certain to gain a playoff place at least, but Millwall are still fighting for their chance to join the promotion pack. Chris Waddle, the man Graham Taylor left out of the England squad, is at the centre of a new controversy. His £4 million transfer from Spurs to Marseille is being investigated by the police. Waddle, who's now with Sheffield Wednesday, has refused to comment. Damon Hill's attempt to win his first Formula One race ended in disappointment at the San Marino Grand Prix in Imola this afternoon. Hill span off in the rain. More surprisingly, so did wet weather expert Ayrton Senna, leaving Alain Prost as the winner. Hill was disappointed to begin second on the grid after being pipped for pole position in practice by Prost. But the Frenchman surprisingly failed to take advantage, Hill building up an early lead, before throwing it all away with a mistimed pit stop. That left him third, but Hill spun off at the Tosa hairpin bend and his race was over. Senna failed to secure any points either when he retired his McLaren after 43 of the 61 laps. Prost's victory gives him a total of 24 points, 2 behind Senna, as the battle for this year's World Championship begins to hot up. Forget the weather, Australia's cricketers arrived at Heathrow this morning for one of sport's fiercest contests, the battle for the